So I appreciate that. Norman, you've got a new book out, and I'll come to that in more detail as we go on. But just talking about where we are right now, we've got this ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. There is no ceasefire yet with Hamas. But where do you think this war now is?
Well, with all due respect, I have to disagree with your characterization of where it began and where it now is. In my opinion, speaking on the basis of what Israeli leaders themselves said after October 7th, this isn't a war against Hamas. This is a war against Gaza. In fact, it's not a war at all. It's a genocide. And in the course of that genocide, we could say, as of now, the best estimates are there are about 42 million tons of rubble in Gaza. It would take about 10 to 15 years to clear out the rubble. And even if the rubble were cleared out, there are no prospects for rebuilding Gaza because Israel will claim that any cement that enters Gaza will be used to build tunnels. And so they'll bar cement as they did after Operation Cast Lead in 2008-9. So where we are now, I would say Gaza is no more. Gaza has been pulverized, it's been obliterated, and that was the Israeli goal from October 7th. As you recall for sure, the statements that immediately came out after October 7th spoke about Amalek, spoke about there not being any civilians in Gaza. The intention was to once and for all liquidate, solve the Gaza question. And in my opinion, they have succeeded in that regard. And the prospects for the people of Gaza, my guess is, and it's pure speculation here, by hook or by crook, they're going to find a way to leave because there is nothing that remains. The estimate is about 60 to 70% of Gaza's infrastructure has been destroyed. The hospitals were targeted, the universities were targeted, obviously homes were targeted. So there is nothing left. And that was the intention. The Gaza-Hamas aspect was pretty much a sideshow. So, for example, if you look at the statistics from the Israeli government, less than one Israeli soldier has been killed each day in Gaza.
But Norman,
that's not a war.
Norman, your chance to respond.
Okay. Number one, totally trivial point. If I need psychoanalysis, I wouldn't go to a representative of a lunatic state. I would go to a rational person. Number two, Israel never left Gaza. That's not my opinion. In 2005, Israel relocated its troops from inside Gaza to the periphery of Gaza. What goes into Gaza? What goes out of Gaza? Who goes into Gaza? Who goes out of Gaza? The airspace, the water, everything was controlled by Israel. The guardian of the Fourth Geneva Convention is the International Committee of the Red Cross. The opinion of the Red Cross from 2006 to the present is that Israel remains the occupying power in Gaza. That's the opinion of the United Nations. It's the opinion of all human rights organizations.
I don't disagree with you about any of that, but let me ask you this. Norman, straight question.
Now let me
Hang on, let me...
Okay.
Hang on. I actually don't disagree with your assessment, right? I do think Israel has exercised a control over the people of Gaza ever since they said they ceded control to a government. But let me ask you one question before you finish your answer, which is this. Hamas. There can be no doubt that Hamas was given billions of dollars, a lot of it encouraged by Netanyahu, given billions of dollars, which they did, in fact, squander, which they did squander to the detriment of their people, which they did by building all these tunnels, right? And which they did in the end when they invaded Israel on October the 7th, they knew absolutely what would happen. And therefore, in that moment, they sentenced to death tens of thousands of their own people. Would you quibble with that?
And don't forget, their leaders are billionaires. Their leaders are billionaires.
I will actually, with all due respect, because I respect the facts, I'll quibble with everything you said. Number one, the money that went into Gaza, mostly from European countries and other international organizations, they monitored where the money went very carefully. They weren't about to endow Hamas. There's no evidence.
How did Hamas build all the tunnels?
I'll tell you.
Well, how did they afford to?
They don't have one penny of accountability.
I'll come to you.
Not one penny of accountability.
I'll come to you to respond.
Okay, allow me.
I will challenge both of you, but don't shout over each other.
No one penny of accountability. He's living in an alternate universe.
European governments and many of the international economic organizations, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, UNCTAD, UN Conference for Trade and Development, they all put out on probably a quarterly basis very precise reports on Gaza. None, and I've read all the reports over 10 or 20 years now, 17 years, none of the reports have claimed that the catastrophe, the economic catastrophe in Gaza, has been caused by Hamas. None. Now, if you claim that you have more expertise in the subject than the IMF and the World Bank and UNCTAD, well, you can believe that. I personally don't believe that. The claim of all of these international respected organizations is the main source, the root cause of the catastrophe in Gaza prior to October 7th. The root cause has been the medieval blockade that Israel imposed on it, and which Human Rights Watch, just in November 2024, a month ago, Human Rights Watch described as, quote, a crime against humanity.
Okay, but how did
that's the problem.
But Norman,
the problem
how did Hamas afford
to
build all these tunnels?
You know, Piers, I never quarrel with facts. I'll give you an honest answer.
How did they afford?
He's going to tell you there's no tunnels in a minute, Piers.
Well, I think the amount of tunnels has been vastly exaggerated, but I'll admit I can't prove that.
Right.
I've talked to civil engineers in Gaza about the possibility Israel claims 450 miles of tunnels. I find that totally incredible.
There are billions of dollars worth of tunnels. You accept that?
I don't know. I'm not a civil engineer.
He wants Hamas to remain in power. That's what I do know,
I'm perfectly willing to discuss. What I don't know, I'm not a civil engineer. I can't answer. What I can say is the following. Let's get back to the question of what's happened in Gaza. You said Israel is in a war with Hamas.
Yes.
So has the other guest in this room.
Yeah.
My name is Fleur.
What is your name?
Fleur.
Fleur. So has Fleur. Let me ask you a simple question, okay? If you're at war with Gaza, why are you shooting children in the skull and in the chest? The New York Times published an article on that, came under a lot of flack because they published that article. They said we can't refute the evidence. We have the x-rays in front of us. They're shooting children in the head, in the skull, and in the chest. If you're engaged in the war in Gaza, why are you killing journalists? Why are you killing medics? Why are you killing UN workers? If you're engaged in the war with Hamas, why is it that Human Rights Watch just this past week put out a report? They tell people where to flee. They say, go to the safe zones. Human Rights Watch says, when the people are directed, they're being shot at the road.
But are you seriously saying, hang on. Let me respond.
When they get to the safe areas...
I understand. I've already made that point.
Israel drops 2,000-pound bombs on them.
I've made that very point.
Does that sound like a war?
No,
or does that sound like a genocide? What does it sound like?
Well, it's interesting. Okay, let's get into that, because it's an interesting part of the debate. It's horrendous that UN workers, journalists, children, women have all been killed. It's horrendous.
Targeted.
Well, okay, they quibble with the word targeted. They say it's collateral damage as they've gone after terrorists.
When you shoot a child,
here's my question, Norman.
When you shoot
Norman,
a child
here's my
in
question.
The skull, that's not collateral damage.
Norman, can you tell me any war where innocent people have not been killed in large numbers?
I'm not talking about innocent people. This is not.
No, he's talking about Hamas terrorists.
This is not collateral damage. This is not even indiscriminate killing. This is very discriminate killing. It's indiscriminate bombing of the entire infrastructure.
If they wanted genocide, though, why don't they just kill everyone in Gaza?
There's a very simple answer.
Maybe you'd let me answer.
I'm going to come to that.
There's a very simple answer to that question, Piers, because I know you're not allowed to say it, but since I know the topic very well, take the case of the Nazis. The Nazis needed the cover of a war in order to carry out the final solution. Now, Hitler had plans earlier on, but it required a certain amount of cover, propaganda, and all sorts of other devices in order to carry it out. Gaza is in the news. It's very hard.
Do you believe Israel had a right to defend itself after October the 7th?
Actually, if you want to hear my full answer, I'm not giving you a yes or no.
What's the short answer?
My answer.
He doesn't have short answers.
That's correct. I don't have short answers. I've said it to you before. In my opinion, Israel, here it's not my opinion, I'll quote Giora Eiland, Israel, the former head of Israel's National Security Council. Israel created, I'm quoting him now in 2004, he said Gaza is, quote, a huge concentration camp. Israel created a huge concentration camp in Gaza. Israel imposed a medieval blockade on Gaza, which has been characterized as a crime against humanity. Israel periodically went into Gaza on its high-tech killing sprees, what it called operations. I would say Israel created, I think I'm quoting now, the British economist called Gaza a toxic dump. Israel created a situation where you have children.
Yeah.
I understand. How old are your children?
From 31 down to 12. 13.
Okay, fine. Imagine if your child, you're a father, your child was born into what Giora Eiland called a concentration camp. Your child was left to languish in that concentration camp.
It sounds like you're working up a justification. October the 7th.
He's completely justifying October 7th. And maybe if you let somebody get a word in, I could explain where he's coming from.
Okay, allow me to finish.
I do need to bring Fleur in, though.
I need your psychoanalysis.
This is not, yes, you do.
But
You need a psychologist.
She does need to respond.
I love lunatics.
If this is one-on-one interview.
Well, she probably thinks you're a lunatic too,
okay,
to be fair.
fine. And by October 7th, as you recall, Gaza had disappeared from the international stage.
Yeah.
All the talk was about the Abraham Accords, whether Saudi Arabia. So your child was destined to be born into languishing and die in a concentration camp. Israel created those conditions.
So was it justified?
So my view is Israel forfeited its right of self-defense based on its criminal abuse of the population of Gaza for 20 years.
Okay, but so just to extrapolate that, it was just...
I'm very clear. There's no need for extrapolation. Israel forfeited its right to self-defense.
I was about to ask, does that mean then that what happened was justified?
I will stick by my formulation. Israel forfeited its right to self-defense by having...
But what Hamas justified by your logic?
Was Hamas justified if your children were in that situation? I suspect as a final resort, they might very well have done what happened.
So then, by his concentration camp has... Tell me something. What concentration camp has a country club? What concentration camp has a country club?
No, I have a different question.
Giora Eiland.
Concentration. Yes, Giora Eiland thinks we should keep northern Gaza. That's what he thinks. So now you're quoting him?
Why did Giora Eiland call it a huge concentration camp? Why? 2004.
I don't speak for him.
Hey, you could just Google
2004?
it. Yes.
We left in 2005.
Right. He called Gaza in 2004 a huge concentration camp.
Let me ask you, Fleur.
So we left in 2004?
Fleur, let me ask you.
Never left.
We left in
your imagination. You left.
Keep your
distance,
imagination.
You left.
So you understand?
According to the International Committee of the Red Cross, you didn't leave.
Yes, we know how neutral they are.
According to Human Rights Watch, you didn't leave.
We know how neutral they are.
According to Amnesty International,
we know how neutral.
Everybody's an anti-Semite.
No, but a lot of people. No.
Let me ask you a question.
I want you to just answer something.
Let me just get a timeout. No, I want to ask you a question, which is this.
That explains why Israel prohibited chocolate from entering Gaza. That's why Israel prohibited baby chicks
but I don't agree with any of this.
Gaza.
I agree with you.
That's why...
He's twisted.
It's Roman respond now.
In his world, that's not a problem.
It's a very simple answer. There are called 4 or 5 final status questions bearing on resolving the conflict.
Yeah.
Jerusalem, settlements, borders, refugees. Those are the main issues. Under international law, the settlements are illegal. Each and every one. I noticed yesterday when I was watching your latest program, you referred to the building of new settlements as being appalling. No, under international law, confirmed in the July decision of the International Court of Justice, all the settlements are illegal. Under the plans that Ehud Barak offered in the year 2000, and then later under Ehud Olmert, Israel wanted to keep 80% of the settlements in place. It wanted to keep all the settlement blocks in place. The question of borders, Israel's position has been, excuse me, it will not return to the June 1967 border. That's in breach of international law. Okay. Israel says it will not leave East Jerusalem. East Jerusalem is occupied Palestinian territory. It belongs to the Palestinian people. Very simple, very simple. I hope everybody will listen.
We agree about more than you may realise, and I do with you as well in certain areas, and disagree in others, right? So I don't come at this from an ideological, I'm with one side or the other, but I do find anyone who attempts to defend the expansion of settlements in the way that we've seen, I just think they're so far one-sided, they can't see the wood for the trees out there. My big issue with Gaza is not that your characterisation is necessarily wrong, it's that we as Western media don't know because we're not allowed in there. And my big problem with the IDF, and I'll get a response from you, Fleur, on this, is the IDF's refusal to let independent Western journalists in to verify what they're doing and to report fairly and freely, I think is very telling and increasingly damning.
Okay, Piers, I listened to you yesterday's program when you had Katie Halper on and Alan Dershowitz and John Kornakis and Matt Kennard. Yeah. And that point you made yesterday, which you're reiterating today, I'd like to address it very directly. Yeah. You say the problem is that Israel is, or a problem is that Israel isn't admitting journalists. Yeah. And you correctly said it's fair for a fair-minded person to infer from that fact.
Yes, so they're hiding something.
They're excellent. Yeah. They're hiding something.
No question.
But that's only half the picture. The other half of the picture, which I hope your listeners will pay attention to, the other half of the picture is this. Since Israel imposed the blockade on Gaza, it's been a basket case, an economic basket case. And all these international organizations have had to come in. Save the Children, World Food Program, CARE, UNESCO, UNICEF. Yeah. They all have field operations there. They all know the lay of the land. They're all still there since October 7th. Now, when South Africa submitted its application to the International Court of Justice alleging that Israel was in breach of the Genocide Convention, who did it cite? It cited all of these organizations. It would be better if we had journalists there, but really at this point, journalistic coverage would be superfluous. We have all the respect.
Well, it's never superfluous.
Okay, I will say superfluous meaning we have all of these international respected organizations, many of them headed by Americans, like Agency for International Development.
I get your point.
When they all charge that Israel is using starvation.
We're running low on time. I want to just address. Hang on.
Israel is using starvation as a weapon.
Norman, we have about 8 minutes.
Well, I hate to be a bearer of bad news, and I've been criticized on that score by people who normally I would count as my allies. But as I said, I think Gaza is no more.
Just gone. What will happen to the people?
I think by hook or by crook, they're going to have to figure out a way to leave.
Well, they'll go into neighboring Arab countries.
Oh, they won't accept them, don't worry.
I don't know what's going to happen.
Nobody's accepting.
But as you know, Piers, in the modern world, right now, there are 2.5 million Syrians in Turkey. There are about 1.5 million Syrians in Lebanon. There are large population movements. I don't want to go into that area, first of all, because it's speculative, And second of all, it seems to me it's a distraction from what we should be focusing on now. And what we should be focusing on now is what happened, who is accountable for it, because that's one part of historical justice.
Before I go to Fleur for a response, just very quickly, because we are literally into the last 5 minutes now, should Hamas have any form of power in any government after this war?
Piers, I've answered that question to you before, but I'll answer it again. I will be succinct. If Hamas, by killing 1,200 people on October 7th, disqualified itself from participating in any future in the resolution of the conflict, then Israel, by a factor of maybe 20 times more, has disqualified itself. And we have to add, it's not just the state of Israel, it's the entire population of Israel, which gets more and more enthusiastic and relishes more and more each time a massacre unfolds in Gaza.
Home, singing songs, one day we'll have peace. And you know what they teach them in the Palestinian? Let me finish the very rude. He's not let me answer
any question. They also sing death to the Arabs.
That's not true.
Even when
you
they go
do not live in
countries,
Israel. You have not been to Israel.
Amsterdam,
and I don't know how long.
They sing death to the Arabs.
He's wrong.
Even in Amsterdam, they sing death to the Arabs. In fact, even in Amsterdam, they sang, you know why there are no more schools
the abused
in Gaza?
wife is justifying
because there are
the
no
pogrom.
more children in Gaza.
The abused wife is justifying
That's what they were chanting
pogrom.
in Amsterdam.
He's justifying the pogrom. The
cult
abused
of
wife.
Life.
Yes. Abused wife syndrome. Justifying the pogrom.
Israel has a cult of life for Jews.
That's not true. And the 20% of Arabs who live.
To do this debate, I always learn things when smart people debate these things. All right.
Okay. So, just one last word, if you don't mind.
Very quickly.
Okay. I was supposed to debate Benny Morris at Oxford. He said he won't debate me. I was then supposed to debate Ehud Olmert at Oxford this week. That's why I came. He said he wouldn't debate me. So I appreciate the fact that Fleur came. Yeah. I don't think she fared very well.
Well, that's
right.
true, but let me tell you.
No, I'm done.
He will refuse. He refuses to debate Mossab Youssef Hassan.
You know what?
He refused to debate him tomorrow.
You know what?
You know.
You agreed to debate him. He agreed to debate you.
Piers,
and the debate
can I ask you to invite Mossab to debate him on your show?
The beauty of my show is we get people on and they do debate.
Piers,
I've got to leave it there, Fleur.
Mossab to debate him on your show. He will refuse.
We will decide who we get on our show.
But
I'm leaving it there, Norman.
Yeah, there you
Norman,
go.
I'm going to leave it. Norman, if you want another plug for your book, we've got to leave it there. I want to leave with a mention.
Debate Mossab. Debate Mossab.
Guys, continue it out the back.
Mossab.
All right. Norman Finkelstein, the author of Gaza's Gravediggers, an inquiry into corruption in high places. Thank you. Good to see you. Good to finally meet.
Why is it necessary, is reported, to start shooting, having snipers outside a church?
I saw the reports this morning. The church, there are no churches in Gaza, so I'm not quite sure where the report is talking about.
There's a Catholic church in there, isn't there? That is.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are no Christians because they were driven out by.
Well, respectfully, there are Christians because I spoke to an MP yesterday who has family members in the church who are Christians.
Well, I don't know what happened. I don't know who was attacked. I didn't see the report.